A win for Ukraine is a win for all of us.
We're giving away so much equipment. We don't have ammunition for ourselves right now.
The war in Ukraine is not our war, but freedom is our fight.
I think Ukraine should punch its own bully in the nose. That has always been my
When I'm your president, we will.
to pursue a Ukraine-first agenda.
Do you believe that Putin is a war criminal? He's responsible for the deaths of thousands
Well,
of
I think
Ukrainian men and
I think
women
it's
and
something that
children.
should not be discussed now. If you say he's a war criminal, it's going to be a lot tougher to make a deal to get this thing stopped.
I think he is a war criminal.
I know the difference between a genius and a war criminal. The war in Ukraine is not our war, but freedom is our fight.
It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win.
Let's give them the support they need. Let's get this war over now instead of having it be protracted.
As U.S. president, I would not spend any more resources directly supporting Ukraine.
We should be supporting the Ukrainians more. I think that even goes as far as doing a no-fly zone. The Biden administration is always talking about we can't do something or we can't help our allies because we're going to escalate.
The reality is, what is America's involvement in terms of escalating with more weapons, and certainly ground troops, I think would be a mistake.
We should never allow American soldiers to be engulfed into the challenge between Ukraine and Russia.
And I spoke with President Zelenskyy for an hour. He never once asked to have American troops, American men or women there.
Doesn't mean we put troops on the ground, but what it means is we should continue to work with our allies so that they have the equipment and the ammunition they need to win.
We're giving away so much equipment. We don't have ammunition for ourselves right now.
The United States of America needs to continue to provide the courageous soldiers in Ukraine with the resources they need.
Joe Biden's been slow on it. I mean, he just approved cluster munitions, which the Russians have been using for a year and a half against Ukrainian forces.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people.
Russia cannot have a win coming out of this, because if it's a win for them, it's a win for China.
This is a proxy war with China.
When Ukraine wins, that sends a message to China with Taiwan.
Sure, we need to have accountable funds. We need to have audits. We need to have controls over it. But it is really important that we support them. Governor DeSantis and former President Trump have diminished that support.
Joe Biden is compromised. He's dragging us into a global conflict on behalf of the very same country, Ukraine, that apparently paid his family all of these millions of dollars.
For them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case.
Some in this debate have called the war in Ukraine a territorial disput. It's not.
Do you regret actually just using that one phrase?
Well, I think that it's been
a territorial dispute.
I think it's been mischaracterized. Obviously, Russia invaded that. That was wrong. They invaded Crimea and took that in 2014. That was wrong. The conflict area, that's what I was referring to. You now have the fighting in those areas. I just don't think that's a sufficient interest for us to escalate more involvement. I would not want to see, American troops involved there.
I never want to see American armed forces in Ukraine. I want to give the Ukrainian military what they need to fight and repel the Russian invasion.
Everybody wants to know, well, how does this war end? It would end in a day if Russia would pull out.
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
My former running mate likes to talk about solving it in a day. The only way you'd solve this war in a day is if you gave Vladimir Putin what he wanted.
I would negotiate a peace treaty which would freeze the current lines of control exactly where they are. I don't think it's the United States' job to be the moral police in the world.
I have no doubt that if Vladimir Putin were able to overrun Ukraine, it would not be long before that Russian military crossed the border of a NATO country where we would be required to send our armed forces in to fight.
What we don't want to do from my perspective is allow ourselves to ask for a premature peace that cannot be achieved as the alliances continue to come together.
There's going to come a point, I hope, if Ukraine is aggressive enough and we're giving them the arms and support that they need, that both Ukraine and Russia are going to understand that it's time to end the killing. That's what we should be in the middle of trying to foster once we get in a position where Ukraine can protect the land that's been taken by Russia in this latest incursion.
How about we take back land that they lost since 2014? We should be making sure that we're supporting Ukraine and pushing the Russians out of Crimea, out of the Donbass.
Was the payment to Hunter Biden corrupt? Absolutely it was. Do I think that it has some relationship to our posture towards Ukraine? I think it's likely.
The U.S. Congress should refuse to authorize a single additional payment of our depleted stockpiles until the FBI, DOJ, and IRS hand over every scrap of evidence they have on the Biden crime family's corrupt business dealings. We have to know, and the public deserves to know,